talking. He's probably listening to this now live, but
Yeah.
he says he's got a new opportunity and that it's got him out of his comfort zone, and that's a good thing. And he's like, how did a degen like me end up involved in such a thing? And anyways, it's just kind of funny.
Does Brian not consider himself a degen?
Brian Naughton's a degen?
I mean, here's the thing. Brian Naughton, maybe to us, may not be a degen, but to
Ah.
all of his friends and family, he's a degen. So
Ah.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
You know,
you
I
know-
mean, like, I don't know. I don't feel like a degen compared to what I see on crypto Twitter. And we were talking about
Yeah.
this yesterday, but like
Yeah.
people that just buy Ethereum to then buy certain coins, that's so far away from what I
Yeah.
would consider, you know, financially okay.
You know, we are in a stage, and maybe we can get into this, maybe not. We know we want to talk about Polygon. We know there's a lot of things to touch on, but one thing that I know we wanted to touch on are, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was people leaving the space. And it feels like in the last 7 days, and Brian's on board. Brian, give us some perspective of what you've seen. I feel like there's an acceleration of people leaving the space. And I said this yesterday on our call. I wouldn't call them paper hands. I'm not going to like ridicule anyone leaving the space. I am seeing people making more money on AI than they have ever made in crypto because they actually have a real felt need in the market. The retail market wants one of two things: saving time, saving money, making time, or making money. And crypto has yet to do this for retail people. And so people are throwing their hands up and moving on. But so let me lead with a question. Do you guys feel like people are leaving the space, or is that just my silo of the world?
No, I'm seeing it all over Twitter. People are either calling it quits or scaling back or focusing on other opportunities.
Within the space or outside the space?
Outside the space a lot. Some of it is kind of like trying to bridge both worlds, but like a lot of YouTube content creators that were like passive income with crypto are now doing some passive income with AI that I'm seeing.
How were they doing their passive income with crypto?
I mean, just
They
staking.
were a lot of stuff was like degen, DeFi stuff, and now they're coming and doing maybe like how to set up side hustles in AI. But some of them were also talking like flux nodes and ETH validators and a little bit of liquidity pool staking and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, like my experiments when Jarrett and I first came together, and yes, I was doing massive degen shit at the time, but I was also beginning.
Grant, it's not a past action. You didn't leave it in your past. That's not who you. That's not in my past life. I just want to say that on mic, okay?
I still have like a skunk. I have like a degen streak, right? But I at the time I was also running fairly conservative experiments on basic staking, and by conservative I mean staking protocols that were promising 40% or less, you know, and 40% sounds ridiculous to us now even. But let me pose that question to you guys. I don't mean like, you know, trading bots or any of that stuff. We know this about Ethereum nodes is a fairly stable, low return, but stable return staking investment. What other protocols do you guys know are actually paying any decent, even single point percentage?
Flux nodes. So Flux, they're their own network, and they run nodes just like validators, just like Ethereum. DAG, Constellation DAG is another one. And Presearch.
Do you hold any of it?
I hold none of it, but I know many people that hold one or multiple of all of those that I have actually physically seen bring in money.
And it's paying out.
Yeah, it's paying out every month.
Jared, are you doing anything?
Nope.
So no staking, no DeFi, none of it. You're just building bags, holding. You're not. Well, are you even like on Ledger? There's the Lido ETH staking. Are you even doing that?
Nope.
Is there a reason?
After I left some bags on BlockFi because I was there to stake, I've just kind of been like, none of it's worth it. Maybe the Lido ETH on Ledger would be worth it, but I just don't even want my stuff into a contract that, like, I don't know. It's just, I have a bad taste in my mouth from doing that with BlockFi. And so I'm not interested in that. I mean, Aussie, I wanted to ask you because this is like a question we'd always come back to when we would talk about this with Jay or with you, or just on this when we talk about this liquidity pools and all this. How long have those projects been around? Because the story in my head
Uniswap's been around for 2 bull runs now.
But of the projects that you just mentioned, the DAG, the
Flux, and Presearch. Flux has been around, I think, for 2 bull runs. DAG's been around for at least 1.5, and Presearch, they're more recent. They're newer. They came around in the last bull run, but they're still I think 3 years old now at the very least.
Well, that's cool because a lot of the times when we talk about these things, that's ancient. A lot of times when we talk about these things, it's like, oh, it popped up 6 weeks ago, and it's like, okay, well, the Ponzi scheme hasn't collapsed on itself yet,
Yeah, no, these are things that like they've been around for more than a few months. Like they're what I would consider stable. Like I don't know, these projects could go to nothing.
Yeah,
but in terms of have they been around for longer than 6 weeks? Are they not degen DeFi? Yes, they're not degen DeFi. They're not
interesting.
They're not Ponzi-nomic schemes that we're used to seeing.
What's the return that people are getting on those individual projects?
It depends. It varies. Flux can be anywhere from 1.5%. I think it's about 1.5% to 2% a month. 2.5% a month tops. It depends on what level node you've got with them. Presearch is less than that, and DAG is somewhere near the same as ETH. I don't know the exact number, but it pays out monthly, and it's at least somewhat close to ETH in terms of
like 1 to 4% APY.
Yeah.
And so which is reasonable, right?
Reasonable.
I was going to pass you the mic. That seems reasonable, and we've gone away from the days of the 85,000 APY Wonderland and whatever Jade protocol was. It was like paid you in Lambos.
They literally like, well, faucet's on. Here are your keys. I mean, we've seen all this stuff, and the most consistent. So like I've been invested in DeFi Kingdoms, which was a conservative 40% a year. Never paid out anything. Anything. It cost me to pull out. Wonderland, I was there early enough that I pulled out early, and I did pull some proceeds, but never obviously saw the 80,000 over a year. Nothing like that. I think I maybe doubled, and I didn't have a lot in. You put 1,000 in and you double your 2,000. That's great. It's not the 1.5 milli that you were promised, right? But I'll take a double, right? But nothing. I mean, nothing has paid out. My Lido Ether on Ledger, has sat with them, and I thought they were supposed to drip like Daicoin or Tezos coin kind of pays out daily or monthly or something like that. I was supposed to see that. It's not. It's still in the contract. I realized that it was like, what was that event? The last upgrade on Ethereum. They wouldn't pay out until after that upgrade. And so I look at this and I'm thinking, okay, I've done DeFi Kingdoms, I've done Lido, Jade, Wonderland. Like I could go down the list. And Anchor was actually very reliable for like 2 or 3 months, and then it started freezing out. And they didn't rug like everyone was accusing them of. They just couldn't pay out. They couldn't continue, and they had to decrease the payouts on that. And that was a 20% APY. And so now we're back to like standard banking APYs. I wonder, are they holding DeFi bags, or are they actually holding TradFi investments and they're just doing traditional payouts? I don't know. So I was going to ask this question. Do you guys remember the curve wars?
Yes, they're still a thing. I know Jesse Eckel, who I talk to fairly regularly, is making decent money on it.
I was going to ask because they were paying out. And they had a reputation for doing decent arbitrage spreads. But mind you, I got into mega, like there's degen, and there's the chief degen officer, and then there's mega degen. And that's when like you're running your liquidity through Abracadabra and you're pulling MIM, but you're putting MIM and staking it over here for spell. Then the spell that comes out, those have never paid out on Abracadabra. Like I went to go check, and when I say never paid out, what I mean is this: they gave me the amount in spell, so it did pay out. But what was spell at that point? Like nominal, right? So the most consistent, the most consistent that I have won on with any sort of staking whatsoever, Diecoin paying out daily. My holdings on Coinbase is not mine, right? It's a pseudo wallet, right? But it stacks and compounds daily. So my APY comes out to like 3%, and doesn't sound like a lot. But they actually deliver compared to the promise of 8, 10, 20 that never pays out, right? And so then the same with Tezos. Anywhere I'm holding Tezos on my ledger or in Coinbase, I get daily deposits on Tezos. And it just keeps increasing. And so when we talk about DeFi protocols and people in the space versus leaving the space, this is my sense of it. The people that have been even considered, I wouldn't maybe not consider them diamond hands. Diamond hands are never going to leave, but let's call them fiat gold or commodity gold hands because they've been around for a little bit, right? And they're leaving now. I think they're leaving now because they realize they don't have a big enough platform to pump anything, which they realize that means I'm depending on hype. And that is exhausting. And they don't want to be. And they got burned on how much hype. And then they think, if I got burned on this much hype and I'm burnt out, I don't want to ramp up my own hype machine and pump and dump something. So I'm not going to get involved in that. How long are the NFT projects going to pay out? Like, okay, so I can get on an actual yacht with Bored Apes, but I can't even afford to fly up to New York to stay in one of my Airbnbs that they offer, let alone get it scheduled. And so there's massive reality setting into anyone but builders right now. And so that's my question. Who are still in that, Jarrett, you've interviewed, that Aussie you're talking to, that use a Venn diagram? They're not pumping meme coin, shit coins still. They're not hope and praying on a project. They're actually building. And they're on the inside of building. Who's still around that you're respecting?
I mean, there's a lot of people,
Okay.
honestly. I think there's actually, I know more people that are around than aren't around. I also don't even know what leaving means. You know, like, if you put down crypto Twitter for a week, it doesn't mean you've left. Like, your bag is still there. I think that the louder you are now on Twitter about prices, you've told me you have no money, essentially. You have actually no money in this, and you're just searching for a quick bag. The reality also is that the wealthiest people on the planet are not on social media, right?
Sure.
My friends that are financially free and doing whatever they want, they don't give a shit about social media. Social media is kind of like the high school lunchroom for opinions and ideas. And if you just own the high school and you don't have to be at the high school or whatever, you don't care what's happening in the lunchroom. So I guess I'm kind of hesitant. I guess I want to drill down on more what we mean by leave. It's hard in this world to not be interested to learn more about AI, especially when ChatGPT 4 has plugins now that come out every day. And every day I see something new built on AI that is just like, oh my God, I want to just like not do anything for 3 hours and learn about it. So I guess I just want to understand what we mean by leave. Because I do think that a lot of the people, at least who have been on More Than Blockchain, and anyone who's come on this show is still
I agree.
pretty much in it. And the people who already left, they left before 2022.
Interesting.
They left in the fall of 2021. So I've seen people taking breaks from crypto Twitter, and I think I'll be doing that soon. I'm going to just fall off the earth for like 4 or 5 days, come back, and like, you know, the world's going to be fine. So I guess I just want to drill down on more, what do we mean by leave? Because like, you could totally just take your eye off the ball of what's happening day to day, still DCA, not be on crypto Twitter or on LinkedIn or on the places like where people talk, like Discord. But did you leave? Just because you stepped away from the conversation, if you're still putting your fiat into the system, I think that that's still supporting. You're still voting with your values, as you talk about, Grant. You're still voting with your fiat. So I guess I just want to drill down on what we mean by leave.
That's a great question, because even DGen Twitter, it's not louder than ever, but it's more degenerate than ever, it seems like. And there's a desperation. We were talking, for those watching, we were talking before about the voice of desperation that can come out sometimes. And DGen Twitter sounds desperate. And kind of to your point, like if I'm at this point, if I get around a true financially free, if I were down in Costa Rica and I met someone, they said I'm financially free, and I start asking them, hey, did you see this post by NFT God on Twitter? They're in the mind, they might not be rude, but in their mind, they're gonna think this dude's a brokey because he's lurking in that shit, looking for a breakaway, looking for a breakthrough, and I'm on the beach in Costa Rica, and I don't need that. And so the fact that he's talking about it is the very evidence he needs it. And so I would be wearing my own stripes, publicly in that point. But, there's levels to the game. So I'm listening to G-Gen people talk about this thing. And what's evidenced in their posts is that they're not building anything. They're only talking about, like, I can't believe someone's circling back to talk about Pepe or Nakamigos. Like, okay, the train has left. Why are you circling back? You're looking for a mini pump. But they're not talking about what they're building. They're not talking about they're not thought leaders. They're not talking about anything. I guess I would generalize and say constructive. So when I say leaving, maybe they're not leaving. Maybe they're still voting with their dollars. Maybe they're even getting down to dollar cost averaging. Maybe they're still throwing money into the system on shit coins, which they'll take an L on that. But the system still there's someone else's exit liquidity, and that person's going to roll to Ethereum or something like that in their own world. So in the end, they're adding to the ecosystem. But I guess I mean adding constructive thought, adding constructive conversation, or actually building. I guess I'm talking about people still investing constructively in the space, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, like, people can be DCAing. Like, I am DCAing still. But I definitely see a lot of people that were maybe heavily interested or talking about the space that are now not, like, that are taking their step back and maybe not investing in the space as heavily, not spending as much not investing their time or their energy into the space as much, and have decided that their energy is better spent elsewhere. And so that's what I mean by leaving the space. I see people turning their energy and attention to other parts of their lives potentially, and away from crypto. And yeah, some of it has to do with maybe, like, brokies. Like, the loudest people are brokies. But I mean, I also think there are people that are just passionate about the space that were just talking about it. And I've seen less of that going on, and more people kind of saying, oh, I'm taking a break, I'm burnt out, or we need to let's change it up.
Yeah. Well, and this leads kind of to some of the conversation we wanted to have, because who's still around? The top 20, the top 50 on CoinMarketCap. And these are we've talked about, like, there being a consolidation in the space. And Jarrett, you brought up some of the stuff going on with Polygon and what's going on there. And we could talk about some of the projects. I want to talk about what's going on because we want to keep featuring. There's still mega companies building in this space that are, delivering, that aren't just startups, that are really crushing it. But the one thing I was curious about is, we talked briefly about Polygon a few weeks ago, and they were just dropping project after project after project. But one thing you guys called out is that the price hasn't moved, or hasn't. Like, if a TradFi company suddenly got all of these contracts that they never had, you'd see a number bump. So what are we learning, I guess, even about top 20 cryptos? I mean, XRP's on a rally today. I don't know if you guys have been seeing that, but they flipped Cardano again, I think it was. They flipped it again. They do that periodically. And they're riding good news right now. But Polygon, to me, has had some of the best news, and they're still not bumping. Go ahead, Aussie.
But they haven't had news in, I'd say, at least a month, maybe two. And they had a mega rally. If you look at it on the daily chart, I mean, I was looking at it on the daily chart. If you look from July of last year, so almost a year ago, they were at 31 cents.
Okay. From
From
so
there,
90.
They rallied to $1.56.
Oh.
So they 5x'd. when Bitcoin hasn't even 2x'd.
Interesting. Okay. But
So
their place in the market has still remained large. What was the date you were given? What are the dates you were given?
So we're looking around June, middle of June last year.
I
Is that
see.
they
I
hit the
see.
low. They hit the $1.56 high in February, and you know what? That was a really really strong and long rally. They're
Mm.
pulling back.
Mm.
It's This is a bit of technical analysis, but I mean, you look at Matic had this performance, and then I'll pull up another kind of top. I don't know if they're top. I think they're top 20, but another big coin that a lot of people kind of talk about, Cosmos or Atom, ATOM.
Mm-hmm.
They had very similar. It's very similar reaction. They hit a $5.50 low in June, July of last year. They rallied to just over $17
Mm.
in September, and then they hit a $15 high in February, and they've been pulling back.
Mm.
There was a lot of hype, and now the announcements aren't coming out as much,
Mm.
and everyone's kind of just slowing it down a little bit. It's just they've lost the momentum.
What do you say, Jarrett?
Yeah, the crazy thing, and I was just looking at some of the prices as Aussie was talking about it, and that was a really good play-by-play of what's going on with Polygon and Cosmos. Is the thing that fascinates me most about CoinMarketCap is there's one number there that I look at, and I'm like, oh my god.
What's that?
And this number used to be 22,000 something, because I remember saying this on multiple episodes here and more than blockchain. And it's it's the one number in the top left corner, and it's now over 25,000. So
Yes. Yes.
it's like I expected that number to be lower than in higher now. But what's happened is shitcoin season came in, and all of these things have probably come on to they have been picked up by CoinMarketCap because they kind of had to. So anyways, I just wanted to call that out, that just say that, like, sentiment doesn't always reflect reality.
Oh,
Sure.
let's look at. I'm looking at their trending. Pepe Derp, and then Keck. That's the top 3 trending.
Keck, yeah, there it is right there. Yeah, so
And then recently added Drake, Ethan Coin, Minions.
Man.
Minions that's a fun coin. What's that market cap? The
What
market
are
cap's
you
300,000. If you're looking to buy some stupid stuff, a 300,000 thing called Minions, that could be it.
I want to know the worst non-mainstream token that you have purchased that actually performed. That's like, I literally have never heard of it. Like, I would love to hear like some new DJ, like Pepe Derp. Like, who has heard of Pepe Derp? But someone made 55% on that. That's nuts. I mean, like, the stuff that I made money on is now mainstream, Shiba and Doge and stuff like that, But like obscure tokens. But let me ask this. What does this say if something like Polygon can do a 5x in a year? Let's pull back a little bit. On killer news, Starbucks Odyssey, Adidas. What are some of the partnerships off the top of our head? We got this article
Disney.
Franklin Templeton.
Franklin Templeton, like MasterCard, Reddit. I mean, Reddit's got its own stuff, and I think they're all run on Polygon. What does it say that it can 5x, and its position in the market cap hasn't changed? Not really.
Well, it has moved. It's moved up. It's in the top 10 now. It was not in the top 10 before.
Really?
It holds the 10th spot in the top 10 right now.
Really?
Yeah. So it was somewhere in the top 15 before, and it's now jumped to the top 10. So it's it hasn't like not moved.
Yeah, and there was a time where it was top 6. I mean, it was flying.
Oh, really?
I actually want to say I think it was 3 behind Ethereum at one point. I'm talking for like it was a month.
No, because it wasn't able to pass Tether. Tether, it was top 6. I don't think it was ever top 3.
You don't think it passed Tether? Okay.
No, it didn't pass Tether, BNB, or USDC.
Yeah.
That I know for sure.
So, question on this. There was a point, I don't remember which of you said this at one point. One of you said there could be a point where Polygon goes away, I think in the last show. And these layer twos could go away. And my question is like, what you talking about? Like, where did that come from? Who said that? Was it you, Jarrett?
Was it Aussie? I mean, if it was Aussie, I share the sentiment, but Aussie, please go ahead.
Well, the thing is ETH is getting ready to roll out their new upgrade in September. Proto Dank charting. My co-host at Decentralized News loves the name Proto Dank sharding. Probably the most degen thing you could name this while also being technically relevant. Which essentially is supposed to help the scalability of ETH tremendously by doing essentially what the layer 2s and layer 1s are doing for Ethereum right now. They micro package tons of these transactions and make them into one basically compact transaction rather than all of these little micro transactions, allowing for gas fees to drop dramatically and therefore become more affordable and allow ETH to scale at a much more tremendous scale. And so these layer 1s and layer 2s, who their biggest solve is the fact that they're cheaper than ETH, that slowly goes away.
Go ahead, Jarrett.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If you look at like the history of social media and you just think about all of the Grant, you always reference this animal, so I'm going to ask you to tell me the name of the animal, the certain type of fish or thing that sits on the back of a whale and eats off the algae or whatever. Remora. So there used to be a lot of remoras that were tied into like Instagram, for example, something that would help you schedule, something that would help you do all these things. But slowly you can now start to like not need all of these extra apps. You just need Instagram, right? Like the arbitrage on some of these things is only going to last so long. And if you look at LinkedIn's a good example. You used to have to use some other thing to post on LinkedIn off time if you wanted to schedule it. Now you can just schedule it.
Yes.
LinkedIn, you used to have to create a Zoom link. Now you can just call people within LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You used to have to do all these other things. And there were all of these apps that made a lot of money building up. And I feel like that's Polygon. And I feel like Polygon long-term may not have a place at the table just because everything that Austin just laid out. I do think we're going to get down to like, I don't know, in 10 to 15 years, I think there's only going to be like 20 chains that people are actually using because the defined use case is there and they've actually like spent the time to like grow and I don't know, continue to provide people real world value. A lot of this stuff I just think is going to be picked off.
Interesting. Well, I mean, like I know that Polygon is also its own layer 0. People don't know that. It has a layer 2 with Ethereum just by proxy because that's where it started. But they quickly built their own layer 0. And I think, well, what does that matter? Because if Starbucks Odyssey, it's on Polygon, and does that mean it's added to the Ethereum blockchain by default? No. It's on its own blockchain. And so they're trying to kind of make some of their own dependencies. And then you look at a technology, for example, their own Polygon ZK proof identity protocol is its own technology that runs on Polygon. It doesn't run on Polygon and piggybacked onto Ethereum. It's on its own. But it's cross-chain, which means you like someone in Ethereum might build a dApp that's like, you know what, we don't have our own ZK identity native, and who's the most advanced that works with us in a cross-chain capability? Oh, that's Polygon. So they might have data packets that are on Ethereum, but it's still running on its own chain. And so when we look at that, there's some stickability, if you will, to that data. Go ahead, Aussie.
I'd say Polygon is maybe the only one of those chains.
That was my next question.
Of the layer 2, layer 1, layer 2s that exist right now, that at least that I know well, that would be stickable just because of the scale of the technologies that are already being built on Polygon and the partnerships they do have.
Yeah. Well, and isn't optimism now like core critical to Coinbase? Is it optimism or is it
No,
is it
the optimism
Cosmos?
stack. So the stack, the sub stack is being used for the building of their layer 2 base, but not for Coinbase itself. No.
Okay, that's interesting. And because Coinbase's protocol called Base runs on it's either Optimism or Cosmos. Are we
No, it's
correct
the
on?
Optimism stack. So it's the coding stack that Optimism has helped build, but it doesn't need to run on Optimism. It doesn't
Meaning
need that
it's
chain.
ledger, the chain isn't required, neither are its tokens.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. But even in writing the code, is it a decentralized code that rewards miners to mint and the code runs and correlate to the chain at all? What is the
No,
purpose? Go ahead.
because even like Optimism token has no use case other than governance.
Other than Jeffrey Jeopardo? Other than what?
Other than governance.
Governance.
Sorry.
Sorry, my bad.
Other than
Old
governance, ARB
And-
has no other use case other than governance. So these tokens, in the end, unless you believe in, like, if you want to contribute to decentralization and governance of these chains because you think that you want to help their development, there's absolutely no reason for you as a regular user to buy ARB or to buy Optimism, because you
Interesting.
don't need to pay gas fees in ARB or Optimism.
Yeah.
You pay them in Ethereum.
Yeah.
Matic.
Well, and you raise a
for-
great point. So we were talking about a person's project that we know that has a governance token. And I've been thinking more and more about the tokenomics, the economics behind the tokens of governance tokens. And if the only incentive is to vote on that platform, the only correlate there is if you own already a ton of the platform and want to govern it. And so, like, if I could buy governance tokens of my local county because I own real estate here, I'm incentivized to do that. But if I'm just a new onboarder, I have no reason. None. I think governance tokens will go away quicker than any other type of token. There's just no real incentives.
The only way that I see governance tokens play a big role is for actually NFT communities. And this might sound the
Interesting.
most random of thoughts, but governance tokens for NFT communities, and like especially ones that maybe use do like strategic investments or do different things, holding governance tokens could be a way of basically accentuating the DAO format of a potential NFT project.
Interesting.
But for chains, it doesn't make any sense unless they're being used for gas fees, because most users won't buy them unless they're being rewarded in stable coins for holding governance tokens.
Yeah. Like a drip or something like that.
And it's got to be not a drip of, it's got to be a drip of a different token other than the governance token. And it needs to be in a token that can hold its value because it has a use case other than the fact that it's a rewards token. So it needs to be a stable coin, needs to be ETH or Bitcoin. Essentially, at least in my mind, if you're rewarding in anything other than those three at the moment, it's meaningless rewards.
So check this out. Now this is tilted. This chart, I don't know, you guys saw this in the article we were sharing. In 2022, this is Ethereum right here. And I don't even know what its percentage is, but it's far and away the largest sharehold or use popularity of blockchain. And Polygon only has 23%. And already in Q1 2023, we're seeing a huge jump in Polygon use. Now, this is a trend of sorts. But what I'm hearing from you guys is come September, if Ethereum's gas fees suddenly get comparable, Polygon could just be toast.
Also, I would love to see that for Q2 because I am sure that it will look a lot more like 2022, because guess where all the meme coins started? ETH, because that's where most of the NFT communities are.
So volume of use of the blockchain
changed dramatically from Q1 to Q2. Q2 saw a massive growth in Ethereum, and it also saw a massive growth in Bitcoin. Bitcoin with
with
ordinals,
ordinals. Yeah,
and
Yeah.
BRC20.
interesting.
And
Now,
Aussie, that's a great call out. It's a great call out. That's because like sometimes we look at charts and we let them take us away. But
yes.
March, April is when Pepe happened, and that's $1 billion. And there's just so much that happened right there. And so
Interesting.
that chart is misleading, and clearly Polygon knows what it's doing because we're at the end of Q2 now, and they could have totally updated it. I mean, these things are on chain, like chain analysis can give you this. So great call out. I'm thinking also, well, I think Aussie and I are on the same page that Polygon plays a really important role now. I just don't know how long that role is going to be. You know, in 15 years, you may look back and remember the Polygon days because like we needed Polygon to be able to like mint an NFT for cheaper than having to deal with gas prices, right? So it could be one of those things where you look back and you're like, right now it feels like how could we live without it? And then we'll look back and we'll be like, oh my God, you know? So,
maybe, man.
maybe.
Polygon is the only one that I think is like at this point that has a viable future. But when I think about ARB, I think about Optimism, I think about Avalanche, I think about any kind of layer 1 or layer 2 that's being built on Ethereum. There's just the future.
Is Avalanche being built on Ethereum?
Well, it's an EVM. It's an EVM layer 1 competitor. It really is
Interesting. What about Fantom?
Fantom's another one.
It's an EVM?
It's an EVM.
I did not know this. Brian Naughton has a link here. Let me see if I can pull this link up from Brian Naughton. He said it could play out like this. Blur takes over. Not really. That's not what he's saying. The rise and fall of popular web. Oh, he's comparing it to web browsers. The rise and fall of popular web browsers. And it's a video, so I won't necessarily play it. I wish it was just a static graphic. But here, let's drop the link then. Brian,
You see it's pretty interesting. You kind of see there's a few players and like with a huge section being couple new competitors come out. You get a new evolution, and then slowly and more often, basically Google Chrome is now 80-90% of web browser usage, and you've got Edge, Firefox, and other kind of making up a minuscule less than 20% between direct.
It is crazy though, because it starts off when you start the video. Netscape has a pretty large chunk.
Huge.
And Netscape, I remember using Netscape as a kid and using that as like the way to get into the internet. And then I remember my Internet Explorer days. And right now in the video, I'm in July and August of 2004. Firefox is really starting to fire up. But one of the first things it had in 1994, I believe it was Mosaic. I've never even heard of Mosaic. So
I knew of Mosaic for a minute. I mean, I kind of fooled with all of it, but I mean it when it was a minute. Like it was like, oh, here's another one. And I knew Firefox before I knew Chrome, and then Chrome is effectively an EVM. It's built on Firefox. And so Firefox, by comparison, there was a minute that Firefox was Ethereum. Not Netscape, Microsoft's browser, Explorer was the Bitcoin. This is tried and true. It's Microsoft. They've been around forever. And then along came Firefox, and it was like a little scrappier, more fun, open source. And that was the one. And then by comparison, Chrome came out, and it was Polygon. I can't think of a better comparison, but it had the power of Google. And Google tied that in, and they destroyed Firefox, relatively speaking, and then ultimately ate. Microsoft realized, I'm not in this business. That won't be the fate of Bitcoin and Ethereum and Polygon for sure. But that's my best comparison for people looking backward, just having been on the web since DOS. I've been on the web since DOS.
So have I, because my dad early on, I was on the web as like a 5-year-old, so I remember DOS. That was a fascinating video, Brian, and thank you for sharing that. But Grant, if you're thinking that Chrome is like Polygon, well, at the end of this video, as Aussie calls out, Chrome ends up owning the world. So are you kind of in the other camp that Polygon maybe could somehow take over Ethereum, or
I
I don't
think
know,
what
add
needs to
something
happen.
different?
I think what needs to happen is trashing, stepping completely away from the internet web browser metaphor. Assessing the market today, Jackie Roach and I have been talking a lot about community marketing, and one of the best fruits of this time in Web3 has been how pervasive connectedness and community have become. How the metaverse is still clunky and clanky, but people are moving into their camps. And by camps, I mean the metaverse, whether it's a Discord group and they're like, this is my new religion, or whether it's a game, a Web3 game, and like, this is my new religion, or whether it's a DeFi protocol and they swear by they're Wonderland time enthusiasts until they're not, right? Like, I mean, everyone is really accentuating into their camps with Web3, and we could pick that apart. But the lesson, in my estimate, in some of our discussion, or even some of the gray hairs who are looking for the trends of what will now live as everything sheds its skin, which is what we're seeing, what will continue to live, and what will then transmute into other industries, that which has community. I say that to say Polygon has a strong community. Polygon, Ethereum, Bitcoin, they all have maxis, but there's no face to Polygon's community. Now, who's the face of Bitcoins? Say it off the top of your head. Satoshi. You don't have to have a face to have a face. You know what I'm saying? You can have a mythological character that carries it forward. Polygon does not even have a mythological face. And this is a problem. To me, it's the biggest bug. Some people say it's a feature.
I don't think it's a bug. I do not think it's a bug.
I was just going to say, some people say it's a feature. Go ahead.
Because one of the biggest features of Bitcoin, even though they have Satoshi, is you can't shut down Bitcoin because with regulation, call them a security. Polygon has to, even though they do have a foundation, it's not like you can go after Vitalik Buterin with ETH and you're responsible for pumping ETH and manipulating the ETH price. You don't have that necessarily with Polygon. You're talking about the
regulation test, and I think we're coming to the regulation test, and I think you're right. I think Polygon, who do you sue? You're absolutely right. Who do you take to the SEC, and who do you serve papers to?
You've got the foundation. The foundation exists, and there are co-founders involved with the foundation.
But like, it'll pass that test. But my point is this, and I said this about. The existential crisis facing Web3. I put this in a post on Brian Naughton's. I put this in a post on John Kraski's. I put it in a post on Otter newsletter, whatever it is, Jeff, whatever his name is, Rosenberg or whatever. And I said this, the existential crisis facing Web3 is not regulation. It's not any economic indicator. It's, do we have sustainable, viable models? And I would put along with that, or just under that, do they have a community that's inspirational and aspirational? Do they have, and now Nike, what you have with Polygon is this. Jarrett just posted about the Nike thing. The Nike shoe, swoosh dot, whatever, phenomenal drop. And there's a micro community within Polygon that will never migrate elsewhere. As long as swoosh, go ahead, Ozzy.
Well, yeah, swoosh. We were talking about Starbucks Odyssey. We're talking about Franklin Templeton. We're talking about all of these other platforms that are building on Polygon. And that's the only reason why I think Polygon is the only one that could potentially stand the test of time. And if we look, they're making a lot of comments about Web3 gaming. And that, as we've talked about, as it's been talked about a lot by a lot of different people, Web3 gaming. Have you guys heard that GTA 6 is potentially integrating crypto and play to earn into their gaming model?
Yeah. So the money that you get in the game, you'll be paid out. That's what I read.
You can convert it into real money.
Yeah, and then the other thing is I saw the meme and it was like also in GTA 6, if you die in the game, you die in real life.
Yeah,
So I was like,
there are
okay.
still some memes, but we're seeing GTA 6. GTA 6 is coming out in about a year. Probably, like, I'm not a gamer. Well, not a GTA kind of gamer. I'm not a big AAA gamer, and I know about GTA. GTA is probably the most synonymous game amongst gamers out there. And if we think about GTA adopting crypto, I'm gonna say there's not a strong likelihood that they're going on ETH.
Really?
They're not going to go on ETH because I think right now, as they're developing, gas fees are still too high. September is when we're talking about potentially seeing the
Not
new
enough time to
rollout.
dev a game. You're
It's
right.
not enough time for them to be deving a game and to be setting up and making sure that everything is seamless.
Yeah.
Therefore, where are they going to go? They're going to go to the next most compatible, easy to develop on, and low gas fee platform, Matic, Polygon, because they also know they're reliable because we've got Reddit's using them, Starbucks is using them, Nike's using them. So
Well,
that's if Web3 gaming and GTA choose Polygon, that could be a continued saving grace for Polygon moving forward.
so this is a great dialogue that Brian and Allison are having. I want to read this out. Jarrett, you can tackle this. Will anyone really care about the underlying protocols once the UI, UX is seamless, other than metrics like TPS, transaction fees, transactions per second, transaction fee security, and time to finality? And then Allison jumps on and says, I agree with you. Jarrett, thoughts?
I agree wholeheartedly. There's only 0.3% of people code. So like people don't care. The general public doesn't care. Like for example, a car. I just want it to get me from A to B. I don't really care. I'm not like.
Maybe you don't care, but I care about my gas mileage, and I care about.
Oh, I'm not getting into gas mileage. I'm just saying like, how does it work? Like, do you know how a combustion engine works, like in and out?
Yeah.
Probably you don't. Do you know exactly like what every
Your
little
cell
piece
phone
of the? Yeah, like we're surrounded by things we don't understand, but we don't need to understand because they allow us to go places. Some of them metaphorically, some of them like physically. You know, like I just was in a plane the other day and flew across the Caribbean to come down to Colombia. You know, I wasn't like reading up on aeronautics and how that thing gets off the ground.
Aeronautics, yeah.
I'm just like, you know, it gets me there. So,
Well, and you raise a killer
agree.
point. Onboarding. So onboarding, what we have called onboarding for too many years. We've been having the wrong discussion. I mean, how often at NFT NYC, at Consensus, how many wallet projects were there? And all the features and benefits are being pitched towards what we might call degens. And so my only counter to Allison and Brian here, agree with you, Brian, but if decentralized becomes the norm, people will just have to trust it. My only, not pushback, but counter to Brian and Allison is this. It doesn't matter. No one cares how the car works, except to those of us who have been vested for years because we've been building bags on underlying infrastructure and we've known it. Meaning we're still, those of us talking about these infrastructural things, it will matter to us until the transition happens when anyone's just talking about the color of the paint. Right? Like for the car metaphor, hey, I got mine in forest green, super cool. And when people are having that conversation, we probably won't be doing this show on transactions per second and underlying architecture. We'll probably be talking about where the latest sandbox in Decentraland will finally be popping off. Allison does all of these metaverse fashion shows and stuff. Those will be the conversations we'll be having. But until then, it does matter to us which of these horses end up in the top 20 because we're still trying to.
If there's even a top 20, can you bring up Brian's original?
Oh yeah. Got it right here. There we go. Boom.
Because I think there's a few things here that are really important and really interesting in how you choose your horse. Transactions per second, that is massive, because any of the underlying kind of businesses that might move on to Web3 platforms will want to be able to have the speed of transactions that they want. They want things to be done quick.
Well, let me
Transaction
catch you
fees-
this. He's saying that does matter, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's what
yeah.
and I'm agreeing with him.
Got it.
And
Okay, got it.
because you were kind of disagreeing with him, and I'm agreeing with him. Transaction
I'm
fees-
talking about timing. When we care about it, we care about it now.
We care about it now. I think it will still matter in the future, especially time to finality. If you think about how long it takes you
Yes.
for your dollar to settle.
Yes, XRP wins this almost every day. Cardano second to that.
BNB is trying to get themselves in that game. Time to finality.
Really?
So we just talked about it on Decentralized News on our episode that's came out today. They're announcing, they just announced their Lubin hard fork, which is coming out June 12th. And they're trying to speed up the time to finality. That's one of the big things that they're working on. Right now, it relies on randomization. So they expect about 21 blocks before that block finalizes.
Interesting. Jerry, you have thought that brewed on you real quick. Did you want to jump on that?
Yeah. I was just thinking that there is going to be a point where all of this will be this conversation we're having, like Grant, you're like, we need to have this conversation now because we need to ensure that the proper horses are in their proper positions for the race.
Or restack our portfolios.
Yeah, and we should actually probably finish the episode talking about that, because I think that was what we kind of wanted to talk about, like what we're excited about financially or where we think the potential lies. But I do think that like in the future, it's like the different, and I love Brian's comment here. Some of the Lamborghinis are basically just Audis.
And no one cares is the missing statement, right? No one cares.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. But because what's so important is the brand Lamborghini.
Yes.
That is what is important. And I do think in the future, you're going to have like kids who wear Polygon shirts. And this is going to happen in the next bull run. Kids who wear Polygon shirts versus the kids who wear Ethereum shirts. And it's beyond just what are the technicals, like which horse is faster, which horse is cheaper, which horse is better over 0 to 60. It's going to be like more of a status thing, more of a cultural thing. Whether you get coffee in the morning from a local place that's a mom and pop, whether you get it from the gas station, whether you get it from Dunkin' Donuts, or you get it from Starbucks, these all say things, and people will carry around their Starbucks mug because it's a social thing. It's all coffee. Now, I know we could get into that those aren't all the same coffees, but like it is all the same coffee, right? And especially I sit in Colombia and I can say that's all the same coffee. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just status at that point is what you're buying, right? And I'm excited for that world, and I think we're going to get there in the next bull run where things are going to be statusy, like, oh, I'm part of Avalanche, not just because I made a bunch of money there, but because like I actually think that this is really cool to rep. Like I have this hat right now, hold on, that I was wearing when I took my buddy's dog on a walk earlier, and I think it's a freaking badass hat. And like XLM is probably one of the biggest reasons I got into crypto, because they were trying to do remittances. And I was like, oh, wow, somebody's already trying to do this globally. Cool. And so I think we're already starting. We're talking now, like this conversation now will be funny to look back, I think, even in 2 or 3 years. That's all.
What were you getting at about stacks?
No, yeah, I think, we started this conversation looking at like, hey, are people still around? The anecdotal evidence is that no, people are shifting. A lot of people are going to AI because they've made money that they never made in crypto. And to that, I just say, how long have you been in crypto, right? Like if you've been around a while, you've made money, you just maybe haven't realized the gain. So I think that maybe we should talk about what we're thinking potentially. Like, how much is Polygon playing into your investment? How much are other things playing to your investment? Because the conversation we're really having here, if somebody stumbles on to Not Crypto Bros, is a look at, and Aussie's been great at doing this today, is really looking at like what is the future potential, right? Where are the points in which this thing gets eaten by another or it stands alone? And I think we've offered, to be fair, pretty good options for both. They could get eaten up, or it could stand alone. And these are the two reasons why. So when I look ahead at my portfolio, it's like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then there's a couple others that kind of interest me. Things on ISO 20022, like I put some money into HBAR the other day, and I'm going to continue to DCA into that because I feel really strongly with that. The second HBAR was at the White House. I was like, okay, they're playing nice with who they need to play nice with.
The
And
second H bar was at the White House. What does that mean?
they were at the White House doing something with tech about 3 to 5 months ago, and they came out in an official White House briefing, and I was like, holy crap. Like the fact that they're there, they're just like making the right things. And I know that there's NFT projects, I think, that are being built right now on HBAR, Hedera, and it's just kind of like a fun little community. But Hedera is growing massively, and I just think if you're looking at its price potential from a strict investment standpoint, it's going to probably melt faces in the next bull run. So not financial advice, just what I'm doing. But Bitcoin, Ethereum, I think Polygon, I think Hedera for me is one I have to take pretty seriously. And well, I'm just trying to go through the other ones. I think Avalanche could probably do something again. Polkadot has not been in the conversation for many people for a long time, but
which is bizarre because it was so promising, and it does.
Yes.
It's weird.
And it's still sitting in 13 quietly. Yet, like, you know, the hat I just showed you of Stellar is, where is it? I'm trying to find Stellar.
It's down the ways a little.
Yeah, it's not even in the top 20, and Stellar used to be like 9 or 10. So it's just kind of like Stellar's sitting at 26 on CoinMarketCap. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of moves to be made and a lot of plays to be made, but like talking about Arbitrum today, talking about Cosmos, I don't know. Where are you guys sitting? Like,
Aussie, what do you got?
Things are here? Well, here's a question for you both individually. What is something that you have no exposure to now that you're saying internally, I need to get some exposure to?
That's good. That's good. Aussie?
I'm trying to think to myself, Link, I think Chainlink is kind of one of those things. Being the oracle of Web3 is pretty massive, and I don't have enough exposure or any exposure to Link like I would like to. I think the other big one that's kind of coming to my mind, and I'm just like scrolling through CoinMarketCap right now, trying to think, because there's one that's on the top of my head and I just can't think of the name right now. But I mean, I think that's probably the big one. I think Chainlink is sitting there and probably just waiting for everyone to start needing the Oracle more and more. I think that's probably the big one.
Brian comes out of the woodwork and shocks me with
It doesn't
soul.
shock me. He's got a degen soul. He loves networks that just go down all the time. But the thing about Solana is, as much as the network has gone down, it stays around. And so Solana is another one that I have no exposure to. I want some exposure to. Another one that I have no exposure to, but I want exposure to because of what they're doing for soccer or football, whoever you call it, the world's beautiful game.
Flow.
Is Chillas. No, Chillas. Chillas is in the back end of so much of what's going on with Socios. Socios.com, and just overall like soccer trading cards. Chillas also was at Consensus, which was good to see. Chillas, and then also Filecoin. But I do have exposure to Filecoin, but I think Filecoin is another one that I think is going to be front of mind for people in 2025.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aussie.
So Sol is kind of like, it's a dark horse for me. I would not put Avalanche in the list. Cosmos is something I would put in the list. Avalanche, it seems like a dead chain to me. It does, like, there is talks of a partnership with Amazon, but I don't see any new projects that I hear in DeFi or otherwise.
Interesting.
Not choosing Avalanche.
You raise a really good point. In the M&A, mergers and acquisitions phase, which is what we call consolidation, mergers, acquisitions, and those that just go defunct, what a group like Amazon might do is they might find a high-functioning, low-cost, reliable chain that's cross-chain that's completely defunct operationally. That I'm not saying it's there because I'm going to share mine real quick. this is my actual breakdown that my patron members are the only ones who have seen. And this has been my remix for a while. I have conservative, which makes up 45%, moderate, which makes up 30%, and high risk, which makes up only 25%. And I might even change that. If I had $1,000 right here, it would break down like this. Bit, ETH, Matic, they get 15%. Boom. I know that I'm taking care of retiring a millionaire on doing that, right? That's what I'm doing. Then these are my moderate, and if I call my conservatives blue chips, I call my moderate just top platforms, specifically infrastructure to the web. They're platforms. And that was my hypothesis. So then I went through platforms and I said, what's funny, Aussie, is you just mentioned, and before you mentioned the Amazon, I was going to say I am actually for the first time in 6 months, maybe more, I was going to remove AVAX in terms of rebalancing, not selling my positions, but I was no longer going to allocate.
And I would allocate AVAX to Sol, because Sol
interesting
has kept rebounding. Community wise, it's strong.
Community
Projects
is strong.
I keep seeing NFT projects still launching on Solana, and
and they're NFTs, man. Their NFT community is on fire.
That's it. Projects that I see, it's NFTs on Solana. It's not projects, it's NFTs. I should probably be a little bit more specific, but that's what I'm still seeing that on Solana. And so they are at this point, especially their price point, at their current price point, they're a dark horse that I'd be willing to take a small gamble on. Solana is sitting at $21.25 right now.
Yeah, which is up.
Which is up. They hit a low of just shy of $8, $8.30. They're still a 10x. They are still over a 10x from their all-time high.
Yes, because they were up there.
Therefore, they are a worthwhile gamble to me. That's a gamble that I would take.
And just real quick, this pink bar right here is the ISO 20022 coins, and they're in my high risk gaming DAOs and speculatives. Sandbox has stayed in there strong. As long as Snoop is playing, I'm playing. And but I am looking seriously at redoing this. I'm going to hold on to HBAR. I'm going to hold on to XDC and XLM, but I'm thinking of dropping Quant, IOTA, and Algo.
See, I would not drop Algo. I would drop it. I don't know what XDC is, but XDC was like I'd rather keep
Algo. That's the ledger of these mix. Each of them offer a different component to what was hypothetically the ISO, as well as hypothetically the CBDC. And that was the actual ledger component. But make your case for Algo, or what you got, Jarrett?
Yeah, I would keep XDC. I would not. It's part of the ISO package. And the thing with Algo is, though, it was in that list of securities. So that's where I would just, if you're giving advice to people as well, we know that. So that's where I've stepped away from Algo a little bit, because I love what they do in the sense that they're one of the first chains to talk about being carbon neutral, carbon negative. But because they're in that security list, quiche, I don't know.
Their price has not been good. They're still making new lows. If I look at them, I look at XDC is still at least not made a new low. It's actually rebounded. So I guess I hadn't heard of XDC before, so that's interesting. If I look at, I like looking at charts. I started my days in charting and doing that kind of thing for trading communities, and so I've learned how to read. I look at charts and I can kind of say like, what's going on with this project. XLM has a worse chart to me than XDC, and probably actually has a worse chart than I would say Algo even does.
What makes a worse chart? If it's super low and hitting new lows, you buy low and sell high if you have a future.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
here's Brian. Personally, I wouldn't drop Algo. Superior proof of stake tech. PPOS. What's PPOS? Proof positive of stake. Proof puff daddy of stake. Yeah, so maybe we'll get into some technical charting of what makes a worse chart another time. We're over on time. Parting thoughts before we do shout-outs, boys.
There's a lot of news that's going on, but in crypto, honestly, if you don't talk about it the day of, does it really matter? And most of the time, it's just waves anyways. It's just waves.
Jarrett, parting thoughts before we transition to shout-outs, sir.
No, I don't have a parting thought. I'm just
You're just
because I feel like
riding my
parting
wave.
thoughts are shout outs.
All right, let's do shout-outs. What do you got?
My shout out is to Grant for creating parting thoughts. I'm sorry if I'm being snarky. I just feel like it's like sitting around in a community meeting and everyone has to, I don't know. No, my shout out is to Brian and Allison across the pond, continuing to hop in the comments. It's just lovely. So,
Yeah.
And
Thanks, they've been attending really cool events, or at least I've seen Allison attending some really cool events. And Brian, for those who don't know, check out Brian, check out his newsletter. He is just persistent at what he does. Allison is persistent at what she does. Go check those guys out. Quick shout out here. My shout out is to you boys for staying in the know. And I guess not paper handing, because the people leaving these days aren't paper hands, but for being diamond handed, I'd say, and staying in the game, even from a content perspective, because there's a lot to build. Aussie, shout outs.
I'm going to shout out to Nick Stobe. He's been killing it on Twitter, and he's a bot developer and a really cool guy, kicking ass out in Texas. And so I want to shout out him because he's been putting a ton of work. And so cheers to him.
And here's Allison coming in clutch. We love you guys. She dumped her Bankless account, not because of us and whatever. There's could be a million reasons for that, but we know that she means she's still hanging with us, and that's a total honor, dude. That's big time. Yeah, well, take us home, Brian. Take us home, Jarrett.
I don't even know what to say. Allison is incredible. Yeah, find us here. We'll be here on Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, as well
Tell
as
your
every
friends.
Tuesday, and Tuesday at 3:30 p.m., Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And if you want to get in touch with us, find us on Twitter or LinkedIn. And all of this content will be housed up on YouTube at Not
Boom.
Crypto Bros.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great afternoon.